Talk about what was what was keenly looked at yesterday, and this was around the issue of the planning of the events that we saw unfold that took the life of Senzo Meyiwa, and who witnessed all of this go down. So that was a central tenet of yesterday. Talk to us about that and what Brigadier Bongani Gininda had to say.
You'd recall, Iman, that, the lawyers are asking according to the evidence that's linking their clients. And here we have accused number 4, and his lawyer essentially first wanted to, understand if there's any witness that has come to the stand to say that, number 1, they saw Mthokoziseni Mapisa at the actual crime scene. And he says, well, there isn't a witness that says that they saw him there. But if you look at the statements, these are the descriptions that people give. But also there's an issue of the alleged planning of this particular hit, which, is said to have taken place at a hostel before the alleged intruders went to the Khumalo home. And the exact question was, is there a witness that says they heard, the accused planning, talking about this actual issue? And Brigadier Bongani Gininda explains it in a way that he says, look, there are people that, were quite close to these people. They might have not heard them say, we're going to kill Senzo, but there are certain things that they were privy to. They're able to place all the accused at the hostel. These are different statements, and there were certain admissions that were made to those particular witnesses. I want us to take a listen to what he had to say.
Your final answer is, there is no witness who had or who was with the accused when the planning of this incident occurred. Is that what you are saying?
No, man, what I'm saying, there are witnesses who saw the accused at Basutini Hostel prior to this incident. There are witnesses who saw them talking, and then thereafter they departed. They came back. There were utterances made by accused number 1 which relates to this matter. Then later, my lord, others witnesses came on board where the accused, in particular accused number 4, for example, confessed to this private person during a certain directives that he gave. So you need to take this collective. You can't isolate and say, I want someone who was there and then subsequently went out and became a 204. The closest person that we have in the investigation who was directly involved, that is accused number 2, and that is contained in his confession.
I mean, it's stunning stuff, because then you would have expected to have that person on the stand.
Yeah, but, certain people weren't called to the stand. And I suppose, when you listen to what he's been saying throughout the cross-examination has been with regards to, the confession statement, linking that with one of the witnesses who was at the hostel, who then said these people were at the hostel. He speaks about certain utterances that accused number 1 made at the hostel after the alleged incident. You recall Sizwe Zungu saying that accused number 1 said, did you hear that Senzo had died? And nobody had known about the fact that Senzo had died at that particular time. So he then corroborates that with other pieces of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting close to all of this, because we know that Gininda is the final witness for the state. This is cross-examination that's happening. And as you told us the other day, we're almost at the end of this year's term. I wonder if it's going to end on a cliffhanger. It doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, well, I mean, looking at, the remaining lawyers who are yet to cross-examine, you're looking at Advocate Zandile Mshololo. She might take a bit of time, but also looking at accused number 1. If you look at accused number 1, there are issues around confession statement, appointings out, issues of the hostel as well. So it looks like it will be a bit of time. And looking at the weeks that we're left with, I mean, court is going on recess next week. So it looks like we may come back in January still with Brigadier Bongani Gininda on the stand.
Just a final thing before we go. So, of course, we're gonna listen to the conclusion of that piece of cross-examination today by one of the members of the defence team. But more broadly speaking, and one of the issues and possibilities we chatted about and teased out the other day was whether the state might actually broaden its case, or maybe there'd be new evidence that might be brought in. What potential surprises are we likely to see at the end of this term and into the beginning of the new court term?
Well, from the state side, it looks like they're done with their case. But what will be interesting going forward really is what the defense is going to do. I mean, they've hinted a number of names that they might want to call, but there's a great interest in Kelly Khumalo. You would have heard, some of the defense attorneys saying that they're going to call Kelly Khumalo to come and testify. And this is somebody, Iman, that is said to have been the trigger point, as he puts it, to this particular murder. And one then wonders, looking at what the state says about her, that they had to exercise caution from the early stages because this was a prosecution-led investigation. So what direction then is the defense going to take? And what is her testimony going to be? Is it going to be about whether or not there were intruders in the house? Her statements already said there were intruders in the house. Is she going to say there were intruders, but these are not the guys? Is she going to be asked to identify the accused and indicate from her statements how she's able to say these are the accused? So there are quite a number of things that may play out with her testimony if she's called.
But again, as we've reflected constantly, it is a decade that we are here, and some of the basic questions ought to have already have been answered, all the legal complications aside. Linda, Mnisi, thank you very much for that update.